1903, Kitty Hawk, first flight, Wright brothers. You guys know it. So meet Sidney Werner. This is my grandfather, grew up actually right around here. That's me in his lap. He was born the same year as Kitty Hawk. And I would ask him about that. What was it like, dawn of flight? He had all sorts of great stories about that. Now, I was impressed with Sidney because he had a record. He went to University of Maryland, not too far from here, and he would brag about how he had scored the most free throws. Now, it turns out there's a technicality behind that record. When he played, they had stitches on the basketball, kind of like footballs. There was one person designated on the team to do those shots, so no one else could get that record, so hence he has the record. And he would claim, late into his 90s that record still stood, that no one could have broken it. I haven't checked, so it's in my mind, he still has it. So he was really cool to me because of his basketball prowess. But I've since learned, and he didn't talk much about this, that he had an internship right after University of Maryland. He worked here with Thomas Edison. And you think of what your desktop looks like. Is it messy? Is it clean? Here's Edison's desktop. So my grandfather worked with Thomas Edison. And I would ask him, what was it like during that time? And what was your first job after that? And he said, I sold stethoscopes. I said, really? He said, yeah. He said he sold stethoscopes. He would go from farm to farm. I was like, wow, they had farms back then? I was little. And he said, he told me once he slept on the highway and he got poison ivy, but he still went and sold the next day. As I got a little older, I realized that I misheard, or I heard what I thought I wanted to hear. He didn't sell stethoscopes. He sold what came before television, what came before movies, what came before the internet. He sold a way to transform people's experiences. He sold stereoscopes. You can laugh, that's sort of funny, stethoscopes, stereoscopes. And when I was a little older, I started talking to him about it. He said, yeah, I was helping people go to Egypt who couldn't, leave their zip code. I don't think they even had zip codes back then, but, a few miles radius. And it was a noble profession to kind of take this device, and there were 300 million sold around my grandfather's era, to take this device, and because you have two eyes and you look at this card, the items that you look at look 3D, and you feel like you're actually there. So fast forward, this is my son. I named him after my grandfather, and he's wearing a headset that I'm helping to develop, that I'm helping to spread. And I see a parallel between Sidney and what I'm doing. Now, what I'm doing is I'm in what is now called Augmented Reality, AR. And many of you may think this is AR. This is actually VR, virtual reality. And in 1996, the big Darth Vader helmet, that was VR because it was limited by the technology of the time. They couldn't do flat screens. And in 2015, when they were able to do a flat screen, and Oculus came out with this, and that's an unfortunate picture of Palmer Luckey, Facebook said, we can't afford to miss this next wave, and they put down an exorbitant amount for that company. Now, VR is where you put a toaster on your head, okay, and you transform yourself into another place. It's like the Matrix. I'm not in that space. I'm in the AR space, and let me introduce you to the gentleman, Ivan Sutherland, that 49 years ago invented the first AR headset. And he called it the Swords of Damocles. If you know the story, some guy named Damocles says, I wish I was king. He went on the throne. The king said, let me take a hair and put a sword here, and if the hair breaks, you die. And I was just trying to show that being a leader can be tough. So this is the Swords of Damocles. And Ivan's about 78 today. He lives in Portland, and I was on the phone with him the other day, and he said, John, I just wanted to look at the world and see a rectangle just float there. And he did. So this is augmenting what you see. Now, May 22nd, 1977, this is when I was first exposed to AR. And many of you who saw Star Wars when it first came out, R2-D2 projecting Princess Leia. Imagine if our Google Hangouts, our Skype calls, instead of looking at flat screens, people were rendered in 3D. How would that increase productivity and making sure people are paying attention? Now, augmented reality has been around. I bet you there's a generation of children that if you take them to a sporting event, they will be utterly confused because they're like, hey, where's the yellow line? And I was with the commissioner of hockey the other day, and he's like, hey, we came up with that first. I'm like, well, but in the hockey games, you don't see it anymore. He said, yeah, the fans didn't like it, so we took it down. But I think more and more sports, a lot of stadiums, people are making stadiums more like living rooms, so people come and have that experience. I think the future of sports are people in their homes augmenting the information they see, seeing the different perspectives, and that's the future. So, Pokemon Go. I don't know if any of you are millennials, but statistically, you will take 27,500 selfies of yourself in your lifetime. That's an hour a week, 52 hours a year. So that means you're using technology to look at yourself. And what's really interesting, and I talked to the guys that founded this company, Niantic. It's called Niantic. They had been bought by Google. They created Google Earth. And they were bored. They were kind of trying to gamify GPS. And they said, let's call it Niantic, because if you use GPS, you can find the ship Niantic underground in San Francisco. People came for the gold rush and just left the ship, and they built on it, whatever. And John Hankey said, you know, my kid was a couch potato, and I wanted them to use technology to engage with the world. We're more hyperly connected today than ever before, but in many ways, we're more isolated. And Pokemon Go is interesting because while millennials are taking all these selfies, and I don't know what Generation Z or whatever the next generation we call it are going to be doing, this shows that people will use technology to engage in the world. And 6 billion miles were traversed by people playing Pokemon Go in 1 year. And so as you think about the future workforce, are you creating tools that can help them engage with the physical world in unique ways? Here's an architect, Amy from Arrow Street, and said, John, I see the future of apartments as information being projected on every single surface. And maybe if you want to buy a piece of furniture, you use augmented reality to see if it actually fits where you want to buy it. You'll see the catalog and see it there. I also think in the enterprise space, there's all sorts of interesting applications for AR. So here is a bunch of knobs. Now, say you are in charge of tracking them to make sure they all work. You can use a device, look at it, and get information on it. Say something breaks. You can use computer vision to tell you which order to put it all together. Say you want to phone a friend, and that Millionaire show I don't think happens anymore, but you want to phone a friend to help you, maybe a real expert, and maybe their digital hands could be projected, say, oh, you got to do this at this time. I also think this device could create digital twins where you can create something very similar to what you're looking at and take it apart to make sure the red wire doesn't create an explosion. That's a James Bond reference. The other industry that's been subsidizing AR for years is the military. So a friend of mine, David Smith, helped design this helmet. It weighs 7 pounds, and it's personalized to the pilot. And it's a $650 million plane. And this person doesn't have to look at a ton of dials because they're projected in front and they can interact with the plane much more easily. But they can also land much more easily. And if something's coming at them, they call it the fishbowl effect. They'll see that missile or something and not even see the plane. And so these guys have been figuring some things out. Last week I was in Buffalo and I was talking to the head of a new hospital that they're building, $500 million hospital. And they are so excited to engage the 17,000 people there in this new hospital. And we're talking about weaving AR in. Instead of having cadavers, have digital cadavers where people can study things. You can scan the bodies and do stuff. What's the operating room of the future? All this health data, you could look at someone real time and look at data and see charts and so on. So the Tralfamadorians are in Kurt Vonnegut's book, one of my favorite characters in science fiction. And the Tralfamadorians live in the fourth dimension. I've never met one, but in the book, that's where they live. And when they hold up a pencil, they look at that pencil and they see it in the present, in the past, and the future. Now, as I think about the waves of technology, I wasn't there when Kitty Hawk happened. I wasn't there, the other things that my grandfather experienced. But I was there when the desktop and the laptop and now the mobile device has become a thing. And I think the AR, VR debate, Coke versus Pepsi, whatever, I think that's all going to evaporate. And you're going to have a device that you wear that you could choose what you want. Do you want mixed reality? Do you want heightened reality? Maybe you could see things in this room that your physical eyes can't even see. I could see where, Wi-Fi is good, and I go over there. And I think eventually this strip of glass may even become a brain-computer interface, and you don't even wear anything. But the idea of connecting us to the physical world, I think, is really interesting. And I think VR is just about cutting ourselves off from the physical world. And this is my last slide. So that's my son, born 100 years after Sidney, Javier Sidney. And we're standing in front of where my grandfather grew up. And all his items were lost when he was in his 30s, like his pictures or whatever. So I never knew where he grew up. I found out in his 80s that he actually grew up in an orphanage not too far from here. And what if my son's future is going to places like Sidney's orphanage and being able to see it in the past as Sidney lived there, seeing it as it is now, and seeing it in the future? And I think all of us can be real players. Maybe we didn't make the internet into what it is, but I think this AR, this contextual computing era is going to be something that's going to have profound effects for the future. Thank you very much. So what you're seeing up there is in 2D. What I'm seeing is 3D. So here's a shelf of items. So say I think that TEDxMidAtlantic is an amazing event, and there are 20,000 TEDx events around the world, and maybe I want to see where they are. So instead of taking an Excel chart and just looking at where things are, what if you rendered it where they actually exist? So this is a globe. You could teach geography by looking at. That's one item. All right. So you guys are known for a lot of great medicine. This is, Johns Hopkins is not too far. So you could take an item, an eyeball, and kind of see how it really works. You could make it much bigger. I can make it as big as this room. That sounds like a Woody Allen movie. I'm ad-libbing this, so if I'm not funny, you can laugh at that too. So say you want to be green, and you want to pretend you can afford a Tesla. And you can actually go inside the Tesla. This is a CAD item. So any CAD file you could actually look at and say you're not located where the car is being designed, and you want to talk to the designers about, I don't like this fabric here, or you could test certain things. You also could teach people. You could explode all the pieces here, and you could teach people about how to put it together. This one I like a lot. This is another brain one. Actually, I'll do this one first. This is architecture. So maybe you're building a building, and they're expensive. You don't want to get it wrong in terms of feng shui and stuff. And so you could look at it, and you could kind of see what it's like. You're pitching a company. You want to put the new have them do the new headquarters. So who thinks this is pretty interesting so far? Okay, it gets better. It gets much better. So this is, anyone recognize that? So radiologists take pictures of people in 3D, but the other docs that interact with the radiologists look at images on 4K screens. They send a junior doc down to take a picture with an iPhone to kind of connect. But what if everyone, from all the people working with the patients to the loved ones, could understand, this is where the aneurysm is, or this is what's going on. And here I can take different parts of the body out, and I could be Frankenstein, but not sort of. So have you always wondered where the spleen is or something? So another app that I have on here, which I could show you, is, I talked about selfies. That seemed to get the biggest laugh before. Selfies are of your face. Well, what if you had a digital selfie of your body? And I have a real selfie of all this data, MRI, CAT scans, all merged into one, into 3D. When doctors look at you on one of those glass walls, they're just looking at something that is, just one plane. There's an engine. You can see how that works. Here's retail. Maybe you want to, my son wants these Nike sneakers. These Michael Jordan. Doesn't even, wasn't even alive when Michael Jordan was playing. I think it's kind of rude that he wants Michael Jordan. This is the last one I'll show. So this is the brain right here, and you see those lights. Those are synapses. And as we try to understand the brain, I think being able to render it 3D and being able to kind of interact with it like this. So what I was going to do was going to make it as big as this room. The eyeball was kind of funny. I want to thank TEDxMidAtlantic. I think this is like the Wimbledon of the TEDx's. My dream bucket list was always to stand on this circle. You've been a great audience. Good luck.